The next show is planned for April 9th, 2022. It's about 29 weeks to bring something really special to the stage. I'm very confident that that's going to happen.
Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We're going to do a prep Q&A today, but before we get into that, I'm just going to give you guys a brief update on where things are at. So this week, we put the hammer down a little bit. My weight has been pretty stubborn around kind of that 162 to 163, and although I'm in a good spot, we obviously want to get into a better spot. We want to bring something special to the stage, so we opted to step on the gas a little bit this week, bringing my calories down to 2,200, which is the lowest they've been this prep. Not the lowest I've ever been, but definitely the lowest I've been this prep, and I'm feeling it for sure. Thankfully, we've got the refeed day tomorrow to bring me back up a little bit, but even that refeed's not where it was. Refeeds before were kind of 3,000, 3,200 at one point. Now I think we're down to 2,800. So still, a substantial bump from where we've been all week, but not to the extent that it was before. The 2,200 calorie drop come mostly from carbs. I believe we're down to 205, if I remember correctly, 205 grams of carbs, which is, we're starting to get down there a little bit. Again, definitely not the lowest I've ever been, and definitely not the lowest that I anticipate they will get throughout prep, but in comparison to even just a few weeks ago, we're starting to dig now. Overall, I feel good, but by the end of the day, I'm pretty fatigued. There's no doubt about that, and there's really no way around it, right? The simple matter of the fact is, we're giving our body less fuel to support and promote fat loss, and with that comes less energy overall. But I am happy to say that things are moving. We were 161.5 this morning, so we're down basically around 2 pounds already. And we still have till Monday until the formal check-in again. There's also an update as to when I'm competing again. Things have changed. Opportunities come up that I will be taking advantage of, and as of this weekend coming, I will be 7 weeks out. So we've jumped the gun a little bit, and I'm really excited for that. The goal is to not be 100% for the first show, but kind of reach that 80 to 85%, which I still think will be very competitive. I'm still confident that I'll be bringing something good to the stage even at that level. But then as we get through April, we will continue to get better and better leading into the bigger shows, which is awesome. But anyways, let's dive into this Q&A. I put a little poll up on Instagram, obviously asking you guys what's some questions you guys wanted to know. And we got some interesting ones. We got a nice variety, so we're gonna dive into those right now. First question comes in: how does peaking work? Now, this question varies person to person. There are plenty of different methods on how to peak somebody, and this will vary, like I said, person to person. This will vary prep to prep, show to show even. So to give you a definitive answer, I can't really, because it's very different person to person. But at the end of the day, a peak is obviously getting your body into optimal shape for stepping on stage. That usually comes in the form of filling up the muscle with glycogen. So usually at some point over the course of a peak week, you're going to see an increase in carbohydrates, an increase in water, sodium, and things of that nature. So I can't really give you a definitive, this is exactly how a peak is going to work, because it's just not a simple black and white answer. I will give a shout out to my coach, Cliff Wilson. He has kind of promoted and coined the rapid backload, where you deplete throughout the week, and then typically the day before the show you do a rapid and very high intake of carbohydrates. He's mentioned guys going north of 800-900, 1,000 grams of carbs the day before the show, and that the look when that's done right is incredible, and I'm interested to see if that's something that we do, but that's not something I've done in the past, so it'll be cool to see if that's the route we take. But yeah, to answer your question, it varies. Are you 100% natty? The simple answer to that is yes. I have not taken any performance enhancing drugs ever in my life. No SARMs, no turkesterone, or all that bullshit that's going on right now. Obviously no steroids, no cleanse, no trend, no whatever. I'm 100% natural, and I will be for the remainder of my life. Question number 3. What week in prep do you really start to feel it? This is another one, as with the peaking, this varies person to person. I will say that there hasn't been an exact moment when I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm prepping now, where instantly everything just went to shit. Those days come and go, and I think that's probably the case for most people. Obviously, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, with the calorie drop we made this week, I've started to feel it, you could say, just from a fatigue standpoint. My hunger is still pretty manageable. I don't think I have really any extreme feelings of hunger, and training performance is still really well. But, there's days for sure where you feel it more than others. And I think that is through the course of an entire prep. I think you'll find that, at 20 weeks out, you'll have days. At 15 weeks out, you'll have days. At 8 weeks out, 2 weeks out, you'll have days where you feel it and days where you don't, right? That's just kind of the name of the game. I will say that a lot of people, myself included, at the very beginning of prep, typically feel the initial deficit, especially for myself when I was in a surplus for so long. Going to a state of consuming less food was definitely a shock to my body, and then over the course of time I got used to it, so I didn't feel it as much. But that initial drop in calories was something that I definitely felt, and I think a lot of people can attest to that as well. Next question. Favorite pre-workout carbs, and this individual mentioned that cream of rice is starting to get pretty old. Speaking for myself, I've never actually done cream of rice. I tried to cook it once or twice and just didn't nail it, so it's not something that I've typically had. But for me, I train in the mornings, so I don't like to have something too substantial in the mornings. I don't like getting up and having something really heavy in my stomach and then trying to go train. So for myself right now, I have a protein shake, some fruit, and typically half a bagel. In the off season, I was doing granola bars, honestly, because I needed the calories, and granola bars are pretty calorie dense and they go down pretty easily. When it comes to picking pre-workout food, the big thing you want to think about is digestion. And throwing in foods that digest well, that absorb really well, that you don't feel that heavy feeling in your stomach to try to go train. For me, if I was to do potatoes pre-workout, that probably wouldn't be the best idea. They're great later in the day because they're more filling, but as far as a pre-workout carb, not the best of ideas. I like bagels. I think bagels are great. A little bit of jam on there is awesome. Rice, if I train, obviously like first meal of the day, having rice is just kind of like not overly enjoyable, but white rice for me sits really well. So depending on when you train, that could be something you could look into. Oats are hit and miss. Sometimes just the amount of fiber in them, they're more filling and they might not be the best of ideas. But for myself and for maybe if you're listening, fruit, bagel with jam is an easy carb source that typically goes down pretty easily. Next one, advice on mindset on prep. Now this is something that has changed for me, honestly, over this prep when I look at this prep compared to others. And it's just my attitude towards competing and what that means to me. I used to be win at all cost mentality. I used to think I was the best athlete in the world. And the fact of the matter is that's not the case, and I know that. But I also can recognize that I am good and will be competitive, but I don't know who's competing at that show. I don't know what the judges are going to be looking for exactly, and they just, I might step on stage and the judges might look at me and say, that's not exactly what we're looking for, and conversely, they might look at me and go, wow, that is exactly what we want in our bodybuilder. So, understanding that the sport is subjective is something that I used to maybe not necessarily fully grasp, whereas now I do. And at the end of the day, you can't control the outcome. You can only control the physique you bring to the stage, and then whatever happens after that, it's really out of your control. Especially at the amateur level and the natural level, like I really think the whole politics thing is really, you're probably not going to deal with that. So it's really just a matter of the judge's preference and who all shows up. You could go to a show and it can be a cakewalk, and then you can go to another show and it can be extremely competitive. You just don't know. So keeping that in the back of your mind and just focusing on what you can do, what you can control, which is your day-to-day actions. Sticking to your diet, doing your cardio, doing your posing, following your nutrition, all that stuff is under your control, and the rest is really out of your hands. Next question, challenges while on prep and prepping others at the same time. So for me, I'm a coach. I'm sure a lot of you guys know that. A lot of you watching probably know that. I coach, obviously competitors and then general population lifestyle as well. And when it comes to prepping and coaching, the biggest thing is time management and really making sure you have your, time management under control, because it's very easy to let things slip and, push things to the wayside. Bodybuilding and prep is very all-consuming. A lot of your day is focused on training and nutrition and meal prep and all this kind of stuff. And, you obviously have work obligations. And for myself, that involves coaching other athletes who are just as invested in their process as I am into my process. So I, have certain blocks through the day where I know I'm pretty efficient. So for example, Thursdays are my rest days. So in the mornings, I have basically 2 to 2.5, 3 hours dedicated to training that I don't have on Thursdays. So I get a lot of client check-ins done on Thursdays because it's a busy day. So I get up in the morning, have my first meal, and then I crack away at work on the computer. And then, weekends, I used to have a lot of client stuff on weekends, but I found that was becoming challenging with going to shows and, coaching actively at a show and still trying to get check-ins done on my computer. So now I have very, very few check-ins on weekends. If I have some loose ends to tidy up, then I can. But most of my client work done is Monday to Friday, and I have kind of set times to do things, and I really am, on top of that adherence to that schedule. So time management, having a schedule is definitely needed in the role that I'm in. Next question, diet hacks to feel full. I will preface this by saying you will be hungry on prep. There's no way around that. And if you're constantly chasing a full feeling, you're probably doing things that are going to mess with your digestion. They're going to mess with your progress, mess with the scale, and that's going to mess with your head, and the whole thing's going to go to shit. So get out of the mindset of trying to constantly feel full, because that is a lose-lose battle. However, there are some little things that you can implement that can help. Number one is fiber. Now, this is something that you can go too overboard on, and fiber can again mess with your digestion, mess with your regularity in the washroom and stuff like that. But for example, if your nutrition includes rice, for me, I love white rice, but it's not very satiating. It digests pretty quickly, and you eat it, and within 30 minutes, you're kind of hungry again. So swapping white rice out for, say, potatoes or for oatmeal, which are higher in fiber, not a crazy amount, but higher in fiber in comparison to the rice, it's going to help you feel more full. Another one is vegetables, which again, you can go too crazy on vegetables and just, I've succumbed to this last prep where I would make these massive salad bowls of vegetables that, although were filling, I would get bloated, I would feel terrible afterwards. So now, I have vegetables in moderation. Typically low calorie vegetables are spinach, green beans, asparagus, foods like that, as long as they digest well, throwing those in that are, very minimal calories that you can still track and be on top of, but will keep you full are a good idea. Caffeine is something that can help. I'm not a coffee guy myself, but, the odd time I might have a little bit of pre-workout later in the day, just to keep me kind of satiated. Sip on some amino acids is a good idea too. Just that flavor. That's no calories, but just mixing that flavor with water can kind of tide you over till that next meal. So those are little things you can do, but again, I will reiterate that, chasing fullness 24/7, it's not going to happen, especially at the later stages in prep. And the last question, which is, when's the best time to do cardio? This is a simple one, and the simple answer is whenever it fits best for you. We used to think that fasted cardio was the be-all end-all for fat loss, and the general consensus is that it really doesn't matter. When you do your cardio is when it's best for you, when you can put the most effort into it. If you're dragging yourself out of bed and you're just kind of half-assing it on the treadmill versus if you did it later in the day and you could go all in, you compare the calories burned. If you did 20 minutes on the treadmill in the morning and you were slow, you did 200 calories, but then you did 20 minutes in the treadmill later in the day and you were energized, you were feeling good, and you did 300 calories, you know, there's a buffer zone there with how much you've burned and how much expenditure you've put into it, right? So at the end of the day, do your cardio when it's best for you. The only time I will say if you can avoid it is before weight training, because you would probably feel, especially later in prep, that you can't put as much effort into your weights versus your cardio, you know, if you're doing your weights afterwards, which is not ideal, right? You want your effort to be in your weight training. So I would suggest probably post-workout or on rest days or separate from training, depending on your schedule, right? So, you know, if you have a couple 20-minute sessions a week, you know, do your weight training and then, you know, go hop on the spin bike, hop on the treadmill afterwards and get it done. That would probably be the method I would take. But again, it all comes down to your schedule, okay? So if you guys like this little Q&A, I know this was kind of just a sit down chat, but you know, I've mentioned this before, and my life, especially on prep, is very monotonous. My day-to-day is very much the same. So to take you guys along for vlogs and stuff right now, you know, it just would probably be pretty boring to watch, to be honest. But this kind of stuff where I can just sit and talk to you guys, I think is still a good way of putting out content and updating you guys on prep. So if you guys like this Q&A, let me know. And if you guys want to see more Q&As in the future, then we'll definitely do that, especially as we get closer and closer to the show. Things are going to start to get really exciting. So thanks again, guys. If you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not, and I'll see you guys in the next one.